Love of cemeteries, honestly, because I grew up right across the street from our town cemetery in the little town in Pennsylvania where I grew up. As Stephanie mentioned, I am a transplant. 30 years ago, I came out here to Oregon in Hillsboro, lived in Hillsboro for a one-year volunteer program. You couldn't tear me away, so I think it's the most wonderful place to be. But I did grow up across the street from the cemetery in Marietta, little town that I grew up in along the Susquehanna River. And I loved after dark. My bedroom was on the second floor, so I liked nothing more than kneeling on the bed, putting my hands against the window and looking out into the cemetery to see if there were any skeletons, or particularly werewolves. I was very fond of werewolves because I used to love the television show Dark Shadows. And Dark Shadows, we have Dark Shadows fans in the audience. Dark Shadows was the soap opera. There are, I think, 1,200 episodes of Dark Shadows. Yes, you can check them out at the library if you want a lifetime project for yourself. And one of the characters in Dark Shadows was Quentin, and Quentin would turn from being a very handsome young man into a werewolf when the moon was full. And to keep him from hurting people, they would lock him in the mausoleum in the Collins family cemetery. So a mausoleum is a little stone building about the size like of a one-car garage. We had a mausoleum in the little town, the cemetery in the town that I lived in, so I was always kneeling on my bed at night, especially when the moon was full, and looking out the window to see if I could see Quentin the werewolf cavorting around the mausoleum. I never did see him, but I also had my dad to thank for the reason that I was so into supernatural stories. When Stephanie and I were coming up with the theme for this year, the idea of doing some supernatural stories is right up my alley. I have my dad to thank. He was taking me to see scary movies when I was just about this high, and we shared a subscription to a short-lived but wonderful magazine called Famous Monsters Magazine. It's a great magazine published in the mid-60s. The first issue had Boris Karloff as the mummy on the cover, and it just went uphill from there. So every month when Famous Monsters hit the mailbox, Dad and I would race each other to see who would read it first. My mother sort of was, oh, you two with your monsters, oh. And it's true, it did lead to a few little imaginative episodes like the one I'm gonna tell you about. When I was downstairs in our TV room late one night, reading a book my father had just bought me, a book called 101 Grisly Little Real-Life Murder Mysteries. Did I mention my dad was also a prosecuting attorney? He was district attorney for the county that he lived in. So we shared an interest in crime as well as monsters. So there I am sitting in the TV room, surrounded by another thing my dad and I had in common, monster models. My dad helped me put together monster models. These are like airplane models. I'll bet maybe we have some folks out in the audience who like to put together models of airplanes, or maybe spaceships, that kind of thing, little plastic pieces that you snap together. Dad and I like to do it to make monsters. So I had Dracula coming out of his coffin. That was kind of my pièce de résistance. I had the mummy. I had the Wolfman lurching through the graveyard. And the great things about these monster models was that they glowed in the dark. So the white plastic, if you didn't paint it and you held it up under the light, when you would turn the light off, the white plastic would glow. So if it was Dracula coming out of his coffin, the vampire, his white face and his white long fingers would glow. And the Wolfman, his face amidst the hair, amidst the fur, would glow. And the mummy glowed all over because he was white from head to toe. So I was sitting there reading this book my dad had got me, 101 Grisly Little Real-Life Murder Mysteries, surrounded by my monster models, and I came upon the story of Lizzie Borden. Lizzie Borden is a real-life story from the mid-1800s about a lady in Massachusetts who is suspected of, let's just say, an unfortunate family incident. Her stepmother and dad were found kind of hacked to death with an axe. Let me just be blunt about it. And the only suspect was Lizzie Borden. Lizzie Borden was in her 30s, was a very proper young woman, and so nobody could believe that Lizzie could have done such a horrible thing, but that was the only suspect. As I'm reading this story about Lizzie Borden, they have a little rhyme in there that we used to use when we jumped rope. Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her father 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her mother 41. Wow, this was intense stuff for a 9-year-old. So I'm reading this, my eyes are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then I hear from upstairs my mother, Annie, time for bed. Okay, Mom. Lizzie Borden, with her pale face, her pale countenance, her dark eyes and dark hair piled atop her large, pale features. Annie, I mean it, it's bedtime. All right, Mom. I close the book, turn off the light, all the monster models glow in the darkness, and I start the long walk upstairs to my bedroom. Book in one hand, clutching the banister with the other. I go up the first flight of stairs. Now I'm on the landing of our living room. Our living room has floor-to-ceiling plate glass windows that at night are like a mirror where any kind of monster in the world could be looking in at you. So I squinch my eyes closed so I can't see them, wheel around, start up the second flight of stairs to my bedroom. I get halfway up that flight of stairs. I look through my open bedroom door, and there is Lizzie Borden's face looking at me through my bedroom window on the second floor. Ah! Run back downstairs into the TV room, flick on the lights. Ah! My mother deputizes my dad. Henry, you bought her that book. You go down there and you see what's wrong with your daughter. So Dad puts on his robe and stumps down the stairs. He comes into the television, the TV room. There I am. Dad, 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 Lizzie Borden, Dad, 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 in the window, Lizzie Borden looking in, Dad, 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 it was her, it was her, it was her. Waving at him 101 gruesome little real-life murder mysteries. Dad, 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 it was Lizzie Borden, I know, it was her, it was her, it was her, it was her. And of all the things my father could have done, I love what he did. My father died about a year after this incident, so I don't have many memories of him, and I treasure this one because of all the ways he could have responded. What he did is he kind of hunkered down on his knees. He was a very tall man. He kind of hunkered down, so he brought his eyes down to my level. He looked at me and said, Lizzie Borden, huh? Let's go up there and see together, shall we? Oh! All right. So we go up. We turn off the light, the monster models glow. We start up the first flight of stairs. We wheel around the landing on the second flight. By this time, my arms are completely around my dad's waist. My face is buried in his belt. I'm standing on his feet like you do when you dance with somebody who's bigger than you. So he wheels around. We start up the second flight of stairs. Dad trips a little bit because he's kind of burdened by this 9-year-old. Trips a little bit. We both open our eyes, look through my bedroom door. There's Lizzie Borden's face. And then Dad keeps going, and we go into my bedroom and we turn on my light, and Lizzie Borden's face turns out to be my greasy handprints on the window. Which, if the street light hits it just right, and if you're 9 years old and you've just read about Lizzie Borden's dark, dark eyes and dark, dark hair and her pale, pale countenance, her pale, pale face, looks exactly like Lizzie Borden. So as a result of that, I've decided that the best technique for going into scary stories, like we're going to do a little bit of tonight, is always do it with some buddies. So thank you for being my buddies tonight.